We can do it. Funny,
Yeah.
my husband's going to the dentist tomorrow, and I'm going Wednesday. Is it dentist week or what?
Well, Japan's weird in that you just keep going back. Like they'll clean your top part and then they'll clean your bottom part. And then the last two, so I've been to the dentist like 5 times in the past 2 months, and then he fixed a cap on my front tooth. That was good. I guess they were like flushing my top tooth with fluoride last week, which I don't feel great about, but whatever.
Wow,
So
so they just do things very incrementally. Is that
it's
the
something
deal?
about insurance because we pay next to nothing, but I mean, I think it's some insurance racket where people make money if we just keep coming back.
Oh gosh. So you've got to do separate appointments for every little thing. That sounds like a pain in the ass.
Yeah, well, it's fortunately I live 3 minutes from the dentist, but yeah,
Still.
you'll go one time they'll just clean your top teeth, and then you'll go the next time they'll just clean your bottom teeth. It's really weird. So
It's yeah, it seems like yeah, I don't know. It seems like a big waste of time for everybody, but hey,
yeah, that
it's not
I
like our healthcare system here is anything to brag about, so
right. I don't
not
pay
judging
much
on
for
that
this stuff,
front.
so.
Yeah, so you got that going for you.
Um, oh, the opening narration. I'm not going to put it on the Zoom screen because I keep having problems with that. So you can either
Oh,
grab it
okay.
from my notes or just bring up the wiki page and that has it. So
All right. Let me see. I just closed up Discord too. I'll reopen it. Copy paste. Do,
yeah,
do,
there's
do.
my notes and then there's the opening narration. Then there's my trivia.
Let's see. Yeah, I did read it.
Okay, so I'll ask you to read that after I do the trivia. So it's in the wrong order in my notes
Okay,
for
I
whatever
got
reason.
it. I'll pop it into mine.
Okay, I guess we will blonk on into it then. Give
All
me
right,
give
let
me
me
a
get a
5 second.
little
Yeah, I'll just take a
drink
five
here.
second gap anyway.
Wonderful.
Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we sleep through all of the episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond, or wake up prematurely, as we see in today's episode, The Long Morrow. This is Matt here, as always, coming back from, I guess I'm going to say, from the Mission Log Prodigy podcast. It's Charlynn Schmiedt. What up?
Hello, hello. I feel so old.
Oh,
How long
yeah.
has it been since I've been back here?
Well, season four was kind of a weird bottleneck. So, um, there were only 16 episodes, so I didn't get around to inviting everybody. But yeah, and then we took a little break. So I remember the last time you were here because I was waiting for a package at my place of business. So that would have been the first week of May because it was a holiday.
That's right. Yes, I remember that.
No, I'm good at signifying dates. Yeah, not like this guy. Um, but yeah. I guess this is the first one. I guess you kind of chose, as in I gave you three choices.
You
Um,
did. You gave me a variety pack, and I had to go for this one for the distinct reason that I love 1950s and 60s hot takes on what astronomy and interstellar travel, any of that, any space program, what that's going to look like. How do they envision it? I just got to know.
yeah. Apparently, I don't know if you ever. This is not in my trivia, so I guess I'll say it now. If you ever watch Gilmore Girls, there's an episode of
Oh,
that
sure.
called The Long Morrow because Logan gives Rory a gift inspired by his favorite Twilight Zone episode, The Long Morrow. Okay, so it's stuck in
You
somebody's
know what?
mind.
Okay. I've seen Gilmore Girls, and I had no idea it was like until I saw this episode. I mean, okay, now I can make that connection, but you know what? Back when I watched that show, absolutely not.
Okay, I didn't watch it, but I was like, somebody's got to find that interesting.
Somebody will. There's some big diehard Gilmore Girls fans out there.
It's like one of the Twilight Zone writers is Earl Hamner Jr., who later did the Waltons. So the Waltons always comes up. I never liked the Waltons. When I was a kid, that looked like that. It's like that's what older people, boring old people watch, you know? And I
Right?
don't
Yeah,
know.
I've never watched it.
Yeah, could be my favorite show if I sat down and watched it today. I don't know, but as a kid, I just had that bias. Twilight Zone, of course, no one. I don't think. Do people have that bias? I guess black. Some people feel that way about black and white, but
Yeah, if you're generalizing, maybe, oh, that old-timey black and white, it's dated. I'm not going to get anything out of that. Well, you're missing out on some interesting stuff. I'll say that.
yeah. I'll try to get some interesting stuff out in the trivia then. The original air date for this was January 10th, 1964. The script is a Serling. Robert Florey directed. He was an old school pro, directing many of the Paramount and Warner Brother B-list films in the 30s and 40s. But he was actually considered the best B-list director, and sometimes he struck gold. He directed the Marx Brothers film debut, The Coconuts, Murders in the Rue Morgue, and Daughter of Shanghai, the last of which has been added for preservation to the Library of Congress's National Film Registry, although I don't recognize the title. Oops. He also dabbled in the avant-garde. We will note The Life and Death of 9413, A Hollywood Extra, and Skyscraper Symphony. Since I've actually seen those, I have a bunch of like experimental avant-garde DVDs, and both of those are on there. So I was like, hey,
Oh,
I actually know those
cool.
movies. Crazy. So he's an
Nice.
avant-garde guy too, which kind of makes sense in this episode, and I'll get a little deeper into that later on. Robert
All
Lansing
right.
played Commander Douglas Stansfield. Whereas my familiarity with Dr. Flory blew my mind, I thought I recognized Lansing. I'm pretty sure I saw him at 12 o'clock high, though not recently. I got the Blu-ray and it's still in its original packaging. He also had TV runs in the 80s on the somewhat infamous Automan and The Equalizer. Sandra Horn was Mariette Hartley. In film, she appeared in Ride the High Country, Marnie, and Marooned. On television, she had a recurring role on Peyton Place and several roles on Gunsmoke. Dr. Bixler was George McCready. He traded in villainous roles from the 20s to the 60s. I suppose he's a bit villainous here when you think about it. You'll find him being bad in Gilda, Paths of Glory, 7 Days in May, Tora Tora Tora, and too many other TV guest roles to think about. Finally, Ed Binns played General Waters. His film credits make me shiver inside a bit. We've got 12 Angry Men, North by Northwest, Judgment at Nuremberg, Failsafe, and Patton among them. Here in the zone, we've already spent a bit of time with him in the episode I Shot an Arrow into the Air. I almost said sky again. That episode, I always want to say I shot an arrow into the sky, which doesn't make sense, but whatever. Sheriff, you could go ahead and give us that opening narration, please.
Certainly. Commander Douglas Stansfield, astronaut, a man about to embark on one of history's longest journeys, 40 years out into endless space and hopefully back again. This is the beginning, the first step toward man's longest leap into the unknown. Science has solved the mechanical details, and now it's up to one human to bring. Whoops. Now it's up to one human being to breathe life into blueprints and computers, to prove once and for why can't I cannot read? I'm so should can I just do this again?
Oh yeah, good. That's fine.
I don't
It
understand. Okay,
happens.
let's try that again. Yeah, sorry. Tongue, words, not work. All right. Commander Douglas Stansfield, astronaut, a man about to embark on one of history's longest journeys, 40 years out into endless space and hopefully back again. This is the beginning, the first step toward man's longest leap into the unknown. Science has solved the mechanical details, and now it's up to one human being to breathe life into blueprints and computers, to prove once and for all that man can why? Yeah, to prove once and for all that man can live half a lifetime in the total void of outer space, 40 years alone in the unknown. This is Earth. Ahead lies a planetary system. The vast region in between is the Twilight Zone.
All right.
Do do
So,
do 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 do.
oh yeah, you got the theme credit. Yeah, you were mentioning this is the first like full form credit sequence you've gotten from the Twilight Zone.
This is the first time I'm seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Love it.
season one, of course, has the creepy Bernard Herrmann song, which I love. I kind of like it better. But yeah, two and I think four is where the like totally classic credits start. And so that goes through
Okay.
season five. But four is the season nobody watches because all the episodes are 45 minutes. Uh, so they don't make sense in syndication. I don't think you can split them down the middle.
No,
Excuse
I
me.
bet not.
Before this, my rabbit hole was just looking up suspended animation and pop culture. I was wondering if this was kind of the first. Um, I mean,
Hmm.
the Twilight Zone has one episode. That's where they got the glass box from. We saw that in the Rip Van Winkle caper a few seasons ago. But as far as scientific freezing, yeah, Twilight Zone seems to be first. Before that, it was kind of like, dinosaurs frozen in ice or something. Um, In the night, this sounds horrible. In the 1943 movie serial Batman, the character Prince Daka uses suspended animation on a corpse to receive a message from Emperor Hirohito. I don't even know what that means. Okay. Um,
That sounds wild.
yeah. I believe the Japanese are the villains in the first Batman serial, or maybe that's the second one. I don't remember. Um,
I have no idea.
Buck Rogers, they accidentally use this gas and freeze themselves for 500 years in the 1930s version. So, of course,
Wow.
in the later TV series, Colonel Buck Rogers leaves in 1987 on the last of NASA's deep space missions. So, yeah,
Wow. Okay, what's with that?
I guess 1987 sounded like a futuristic date to people in the few decades prior. I don't know.
Interesting. I had no idea 1987 was like the year of the future.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What was it? Epcot Center's when in Disney World when it opened, its tagline was the 21st century begins on like October 1st, 1982. And you're like, wait, what? No, that
That's
doesn't
not
make
how it
sense.
works.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Sorry, you know.
Nice try.
But that makes it kind of a charming tagline. But yeah, yeah. So I guess 80s future was the future of the 60s. We had a few episodes already this season that went to the future of 1974, so it doesn't have to be 87, but yeah,
Mm.
yeah, I was definitely
Now,
thinking of
how
Buck
does
Rogers.
74 compare to 87? Because there's definitely like minimalism really took off a lot sooner in this universe than it really actually did in ours.
Yeah, I liked how this episode saved money on chairs. There's no chairs in the episode. The guy makes a point of it when he walks in the office, like, I don't have chairs. And you're like, oh, okay. And then of course the spacecraft
It's the
has no chairs.
future. You don't need chairs.
At the restaurant, they're dancing, so we don't see them sitting and eating dinner. We just see them dancing. So there's no, in a bland hallway. I mean, it's a very
Like
tight
the
shot,
most
so
bare bones set I think I've seen on this show to date.
yeah, yeah. But I do like that. I mean, it's kind of like a black box theater thing a little bit. You could do this episode as a black box theater, kind of.
Certainly. Yeah, you really could. You could make that work. It's very
But
theatrical, and I do appreciate that because that sort of setting always lets the actors just really shine and doing their thing. And since this is a character story, it really works for that.
yeah, and I think the characters are generally good. And I mean the acting's good. There is weird touches. You mentioned in your notes, and I was certainly thinking like this guy's not 31.
Things were a little different back in this time, like people aged a little differently than they do today.
Yeah, well, there's no way. I did not check Robert Lansing's actual age as of filming. I'm like, he could not have been
Mm.
close to 31. Let's have a quick
He looks a little more
whiz
like, I
back.
don't know, 41?
He was 36. Okay.
Splitting the difference.
Still,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. So it's still a rough 36, I think. I don't know. Again, it is past ages where of course Sandy works out fine. She actually looks 26, 7. They said one of those
Yeah,
numbers.
not too bad.
So that worked. When they meet though, that was like that hand thing was like super creepy. Maybe you're an astronaut, you can get away with that. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly the flirtation game was strong and it was receptive. It worked. I think these folks had no problem either putting on the moves or receiving them. Like they were totally into one another from the get-go, which I find incredibly interesting given the situation that she knows he's going away. He knows he's going away. And my thought this whole time until the end was, okay, she's going to get pregnant. And when he comes back, she's going to be long gone, but he'll meet his long lost child or something.
They tried to oh, that's his child though. So I was thinking about the Captain America thing where they in the movies they briefly flirted with, oh, he can meet Agent Carter's like grandniece or whatever.
Hmm.
And she's
It's
in like
something
one and a half movies and then they forgot about it again. So
I figured it was going to be a situation like that where he comes back to a world he absolutely does not recognize. And the one and only person waiting for him who remembers at all who he is this long lost kid. And they're gonna go off and learn the world together.
I mean, you change a few details about who they are. That is pretty much how this ends. I mean, he's just going to stumble off into this brave new world of 2027, I guess, is what we're looking at here.
Woo!
So
The
it's still
future.
the future. NASA is still using dials and levers on their consoles.
Yes, and Mercury rockets probably. I
Yeah, it was
noticed
like
that.
that thing's yeah. Well, I noticed that because I watched it like right before we got on, and I was okay, Mercury Rock, and then I was looking at the people standing near it, and I was like, wow, that thing really isn't that big.
No.
I mean,
No.
we're
No,
used
at
to
first I thought, oh, is that a Saturn V? No, it was way too soon for that. So I had to go look it up. It is a Mercury Atlas rocket for sure.
that's why it took so long for him to get out there. No, I know that's not the reason.
I would love to know this mechanism of interstellar drive. What are they attaching to this rocket that makes them go faster than light? Like much faster than light, even.
70 times, which I was thinking, I guess technically if warp speed in Star Trek is exponential, he's going at warp 1.7 basically. I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not a mathematician, but that was my guess. Like he's at a low warp, you know. So by the time
sure.
of the 2027, they're like, yeah, we've been there, done that. You know, they got their warp 5 capable ships ready now, you know.
Yeah, so they just forgot all about this guy, I guess, and just, he's just
Well,
out there.
I guess that is the weird thing. That's kind of what would happen in suspended animation situations, I suppose. Was it Idiocracy where like they're just in a pile of rubble when they wake up because that place has been long since forgotten about by stupid people?
Having rewatched that movie somewhat recently, yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
although
you
I
know,
guess,
paperwork gets, you know, people forget about things. You know, just think about things that this is a universal. You just at your office, things that were normal 10 years ago and are not now, you know, everyone's just forgotten
right.
about it.
Yeah. Well, and you know that they're in the super future because when we catch up with Sandy after she's brought out of her freeze, she's in sparkly clothes.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah, yeah.
definitely the future.
Right, right. In 3 years, we will be wearing some. I can't wear synthetic stuff too much though. It gets itchy on me.
Yeah, it is itchy. I don't like that idea. That or rubbery, and
Yeah,
neither one breathes well. That's not cool.
yeah. Undershirts, socks. I wash them before I wear them because otherwise I'll just have a bad day.
Yeah. Ugh. I'm with you.
Of course, this guy is in his space briefs for his suspended animation. So,
These are the weirdest, thickest briefs I have ever seen.
well, you need them for the suspended animation, assume. I mean, kind of a proto
Hmm.
like aliens look, I guess, to it all. Reusing their glass box from the first time. But what did you think about the space shots? I mean, we don't see him go to the planet. They just tell us he did. So, saving some money there
Yeah.
too.
Well, again, very minimalistic. Uh, that part's a little bit of a fail. We don't even get to see that part. Aw, that's a little bit of a letdown. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I really think, you know, Serling wrote this one, and I have a feeling that he was very specifically writing this one to save on some budget.
Well, that they did,
He's
probably
on
to a
set.
fault.
He's on set for the opening narration. So, you know, he was maybe overseeing this one more because a lot of times it's like blur, 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 and he's just standing on a clearly not a background set. This one I wasn't quite sure because they had one of the astronomical pictures behind him. I'm like, you know, they could have just put that there too, I guess. So
Right. Speaking of those pictures, I find that hilarious that it looks like these pictures are a bunch of star clusters, but he's pointing very directly, this system has planets. And
oh
you can't
right.
tell from the photo at all.
Well, and when I keep saying Lansing the actor's name. Maybe I'll say the character's name. When
You
Douglas
mean Stansfield?
Stanfield comes up, yeah, when Stansfield comes up, he's like, "Oh, there's the sun, there's the Earth." I'm like, "That you can't just look at a chart like that and point out the solar
That's
system."
that's not how that works. No.
But we do see that in a lot of other stuff. Space 1999 distinctly has that happen once or twice, where they're just pointing at random looking
Oh,
charts and being
does it?
like,
Okay.
"We're here, you're here, Earth is here." It's like, what? You can't. That's you can it's not it's a 3D model for one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I have yet to watch that show, but that's okay. That's a funny detail to know.
Yeah, so they didn't get over it by then. But the stasis stuff, one of the things where I kind of was like, whoa, when I was like Robert Florey, the director, was actually a serious avant-garde director because the scenes of him in stasis made me think of a movie from 2 years earlier. Are you familiar, Ed? familiar at all with La Jetée?
No.
Okay, that's actually a short experimental film which 12 Monkeys is based on, basically. Um,
Oh, okay.
in that one, instead of the weird Terry Gilliam contraption they send Bruce Willis into the past with in 12 Monkeys, they use like again, they didn't have a ton of money, so they're just injecting him with drugs, and he's got something over his eyes or whatever. And the movie's all still images. It's not moving film, it's all stills, except for one very short shot. But
Whoa.
with the narrator going over, and it just felt very similar to me. So I was like, oh, maybe Flory did know about La Jetée because he's into that sort of thing. You
Hmm.
can watch it on YouTube. I very highly recommend that. I think we even did a special episode of that for this podcast, or maybe my old oral hygiene podcast. But I've done a podcast on it before. I kind of like it better than 12 Monkeys. I like 12 Monkeys, but yeah.
Oh, okay. This sounds wild. It sounds interesting. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. I will send you a link for that, and other people can ask me for a link, or La Jetée, Jetee. There we go. But and
Woo.
then and then it has the music is also that similar. This is stock music in here, but just kind of that dreamy harpy thing, a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
yeah, dream-like. The vibe was kind of similar. I guess this is a vibes episode. They didn't have money, so they had to
It's all vibes.
double down on the vibes. That's right.
Yeah, that's to make up for the lack of sets
Yes, and chairs, of course.
and chairs. You know it's
uh
bad if you can't even afford chairs.
yeah. I guess Dr. Bixler should be keeping track of his astronauts' personal dealings because he knows all about Sandy. He put in the notes. So,
I
um,
mean, yeah. And I guess quarantine is not much of a thing with space travel in this version of 1987 because, they were pretty busy for a second before
yeah.
we had to go.
And then we got the kind of reverse passengers going on, which actually is probably good since passengers left people with a bad taste in their mouth. But yeah, maybe I don't know. Stick with he triple guessed himself basically. That's why he's now 71 years old. Like, stick with the flight
Totally
plan,
did.
dude.
Right? Yeah, that's all you had to do. You had one job and you kind of failed, buddy.
Well, he did his one job, but he
Well,
just
okay,
did it the
yeah,
slow
but
way.
yeah. I mean, it's true love, though. I mean, they pulled this classic switcheroo. He did his thing because he loved her so much. She did her thing because she loved him so much. And guess what? You both fail.
Yeah, I guess they did slightly better in Romeo and Juliet because they're neither of them are dead at the end of the episode. But I don't know. Maybe he's dead to her. She's dead to him. There we go. Because he's kind of like, I love you now. Go away.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about the ending because it is a bit of a downer. Like, it's
Yeah.
really sad. And he is just not even willing to give it a chance. It seems like she is, but he's like, nope, you go.
Yeah.
So,
Well, at
what are your
least
thoughts on that?
I mean, on her end, I mean, yeah, that's a heart wrencher. She's like, oh my God, I just wasted 40 years. But she didn't live those 40 years. So she's still,
Right.
26, 27, and she's going to have a confusing future to live in now. I mean, popping from
Yeah.
1964 to this is definitely going to blow your mind, or 87, excuse me. So that's for the 40 years. Math,
Right,
man.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah, I know. Math. Ugh.
he's finished. I mean, I assume his flirt worked so well at the beginning because it said he'd been an astronaut for 11 years. So if in 1973 Buzz Aldrin comes up and hits on someone, he can probably do, within certain boundaries, which that's where the hand thing was weird. I was like, is that pushing the boundary? But so he's
And maybe
famous.
not for an
Well,
astronaut
he's not
in this day
famous
and age.
now. He'd get I think he'd get new fame if we had a guy that popped up from 40 years in space. He'd be in the news and everyone know who he was.
You would think. You would think, but you would also think NASA would have a budget for chairs. So this version of the future just has a lot of things going for it that ours doesn't. For instance, okay, so he's on this 40-year journey. Did they pack enough food for him to eat? I guess apparently they did, just
That
in case
was
he woke up, question mark?
okay, that's probably why. And like you said, I guess that's 40 years of MREs, but and in the 60s MREs were not good. So,
Yeah, they had to have been awful.
yeah, so he's eating garbage for 40, hopefully healthy garbage, but garbage. So, but yeah, that is the thing because if it's on a Mercury rocket, then it's a small craft. I assume it's just the one room. I wasn't sure. Like, does he just have to like
Yeah.
kind of move around that glass case because he's not in it anymore for 40 years? How does that work? He
Honestly, if
doesn't
I
have a
were him, I
chair.
would have chucked that clock out into space because that thing was huge and took up way too much space. You could free that up.
Oh, you should have seen the giant signs we found in a spaceship a few weeks ago back in the the one I talked to John Champion about. I can't remember the episode's title. The title of the episode. Yeah, I'm going backwards today.
Well, this guy went forwards. We're going back. Time is just a construct.
So they talk about it's a he's had like a completely brand new human experience is what Future General says, right?
Yeah.
Which and I'm thinking in 1964, yeah, he's sitting there. I guess he has a flight plan. That's his book to read. He doesn't have any digital computery, so I guess he doesn't have our hard drives with 8,000 movies on it. So he is just staring at a steel wall in the stars for the next 40 years, I guess, or the past 40 years.
How is this guy just not completely pissed off?
He looks pretty pissed at the end. I mean, he's holding it together, but he doesn't look.
He's bitter. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he can't. He probably doesn't actually know how to interact with humans anymore properly, which is maybe why he is
That's,
acting that
yeah.
way.
That's what I thought too, is it had been so long he forgot how to be around other human beings. And maybe that is why he pushed Sandy away. Because he's just
Yeah,
like,
he
there's
doesn't.
no
I
way I could
can't
do that.
deal with things. Well, like we have a new teacher at the school who's a very nice guy, but he's coming to watch my class, and I realized just 10 minutes before, like just having this slight weird like, I have to meet someone new, you know? I mean, that's not someone new, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's like I can't just go about my day. I have to actually like meet somebody, which is and it
Yeah.
was
Oh,
fine and everything, but
social.
and yeah, I don't know. Just I mean, it's an unconscious thing, right? It's not like it's just like I feel slightly like I think
It's going
the
to require effort.
the
And
more introverted personalities get what I'm talking about.
totally, totally do. Yeah, I mean it's a concerted effort. You have to put that forth. It's even if you're excited, it's just like, okay, we're gonna do this. You got to work up the nerve.
Well, how do you think you would deal with 40 years in a dragon capsule by yourself? You got all the digital stuff now, you know? Uh,
Yeah, that would be a lot easier than what this guy went through, because this is just the like most bare bones, absolute nothing burger of 40 years you could possibly get. The isolation, the loneliness, the complete lack of stimulation. It would just have to be deafening.
I'm in the middle of watching Twin Peaks: The Return. I don't know if you're a Twin
Hmm,
Peaks fan, but at
I
the
have not
end
gotten into that.
at the end of the 91 at the 90s show, Agent Dale Cooper is stuck in the weird red room, right? So the insinuation is when the new show starts, he's been in there for 25 years and he comes out just as a weird shell. It's not like you get to go straight to fun Dale Cooper from the 90s. Like Kyle MacLachlan is amazing in the role, and he does many things that are funny, but you're just like you're watching the shell of a guy. Like people just have to kind of push him in a direction, so he'll go or walk over there. It's like really weird. But
Yeah, well,
I was
just,
kind of thinking that Stansfield might be in that headspace now because he's kind of been in his own little, not metaphysical, pure evil hell metaphysics land, but he's been on a spacecraft. It's weird, you know?
completely on his own. And also, his body seemed to hold up pretty well being in zero grav for that many years and absolutely no exercise implements or anything. Just the concepts of space travel. The logistics really weren't worked out that much back in this day. You could tell.
Yeah, of course there was no reason to, of course it's zero grab, yes, but I don't think the Twilight Zone like quite bared down on that. I don't know, maybe when the Mercury capsules were going up, and or we did Gemini by 64 maybe, but I
Maybe. I don't
I
remember.
think people are like, oh, we should have gravity before too long for some reason. We'll have the technology. Star Trek certainly didn't worry about zero gravity. I mean, for film, it's just like you've just increased your budget by God knows how much once you've included zero
Right.
gravity.
Yeah. Well, here's a question I have about this journey. Was the whole idea to go to this planet and scan it and look for life, or was the whole idea what to land and actually visit another planet?
I think both, because the first you could just send a probe out for, you don't need to put a person on that one, which by the
Hmm.
70s, that also was something we understood. Like, hey, if you want to go to Jupiter, you don't need to send people. You can send,
Right.
we're not landing on Jupiter, so there's not.
Yeah. What did they call Jupiter in this episode? It was volcanic. They said that was volcanic.
Yeah, so in 1964, people are still very much of the mind probably that, oh, people need to go to all of these places. Where once Voyager's out and kicking, we're like, well, I guess Voyager can do it, or
Right.
the Pluto probe. Yeah, they talk about Pluto too a little bit. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and Voyager, oh, for however many years it's been now, man, it's amazing those things are still kicking even at all. They're having a tougher time with each passing year, but it's amazing that they are still communicating.
yeah, once you're 40 years past its life expectancy, it's all icing, I think.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's just so
Speaking of
cool.
40 years, yeah. Do you have any other big observations you want to toss out on this one before I start getting to questions?
Hmm. Well, yeah, it occurs to me that, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, Sandy is basically the only other person on Earth who has no idea what president or present day is like besides Stansfield, and they're not going to navigate it together. That's why this episode is such a downer.
Although in the future of 2027, it is just like, oh yeah, she's down the hall in the cryo room. So theoretically, this is a not completely abnormal thing to do by
Good
this
point.
2027. I mean, we're sitting here, it's almost 2025, and we're like, yeah, that's wild. We don't do freezing, but in the logic of this episode, it does seem they probably like support groups for people who are coming back and things like that, you
Maybe
know?
some re-education to get you acquiesced. I would hope.
Shiny dresses, yeah.
Right. Yeah, you got to get up to date on the fashion trends, the flying cars. Who knows what else is out there?
So, yeah, of course, again, the episode is so minimalist, which makes it cool, but anything superfluous simply is not in this episode, you know?
No, not in the least.
Well, let's throw in a few questions. I guess who in this episode went in or through the Twilight Zone?
Well, it's got to be our guy here, Stansfield, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
for
he's in
sure.
interstellar space, baby. That's about as Twilight Zone as you can get.
Yeah, again, that quote is I can't understand what you've been through. I'm paraphrasing. I can't understand what you've been through, but it's a brand new experience in human whatever. See, that I definitely paraphrase. That's not what he said, but
Yeah, yeah, but
I was half looking for the quote while trying to say the quote, which was probably the
yeah, the
problem.
sentiment's there. You got it.
How about Sandy?
Maybe she did, but she wasn't aware. So, does that count?
Well, I think a lot of people are caught unaware by a Twilight Zone, but you do make a good point that Stansfield full on made many decisions. All of the decisions,
Choices were made.
choices
Yeah.
were made. He chose to go on the flight, having being told this is going to be a weird one, dude, you know? Uh,
All
I
right.
feel like,
He signed up for this.
yeah, I think we've come to the conclusion with various co-hosts on this podcast that basically, if you're an astronaut, you deserve whatever is if you're an exploratory astronaut, you signed up for whatever happens.
It was like Captain Janeway said, weird is part of the job.
Yes, so as yeah, I think he is relatively deserving in that he made the choices himself, but Sandy's a little different, you know. Does she
Yeah.
deserve is kind of a weird
Yeah,
thought.
deserve might not be the right word for her because I she does not deserve the ending of this story.
They
But
could have
she also made
communicated
some
better.
choices. Yeah.
She could have told him she was doing that.
Well, she also maybe she could have kept her distance. It's like she seemed like a real groupie. She was just like, "Oh my God, an astronaut!" Ooh,
Yeah,
and yet
yeah.
she herself works at NASA, so isn't she around astronauts all the time? I don't know.
Right. So
Uh, but anyway,
I
I
don't
guess that's a part of
see.
that 1960s culture of like, hey, these guys really are the pioneers. They are rock stars.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at with someone, especially meeting well, probably middle-aged Buzz Aldrin would be like, ah, you know,
Right, right.
just for
Yeah, so
thinking of
she
someone who would
definitely
probably
goes that
respond
route.
like, hey, right? Because I was like, Neil Armstrong seemed like he wouldn't be flirting like that in the first place, but
Right.
and I
But
don't know what
others,
Michael
maybe.
Collins was up to. Yeah, yeah, you don't know what they do in the outside of the public limelight. Um,
Right.
So, but she does, I guess the thing with her is she's now having a very weird life, but she didn't just lose half her life, which Stansfield did.
Right.
I
And
don't know,
like in a
maybe he
way,
got
it's like she gets to restart her life, but under a completely different paradigm where she has still lost Stansfield,
yeah.
basically.
I mean, maybe he got really deep, really, really deep into meditation. I mean, that would be a thing to do for on your 40-year spacecraft by yourself.
Maybe. I mean, what else are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, that basically is whether you like it or not, I guess. So,
Yeah.
in a certain way
Yeah.
of thinking. Um, But yeah, I don't think anyone else here is really Twilight Zone adjacent. Dr. Bixler,
No.
no, he's just a, well, I when I was doing the trivia, I was kind of like, well, I guess maybe he's a bit of a villain in here. I don't know. What do you think? He's
Villain or just,
devised.
I don't know if he's a villain. I don't think I'd go that far.
There is that one part though where he was like, "Yep, well, you're already committed, like there's no way out of this now, dude," which seemed a little hard. And yeah, apparently, I don't know if you noticed, but he had a scar above one eye. Apparently, usually played the villains because he was in a car accident, and that's an actual scar.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so then they'd be like, "Oh, usually they'd be like, okay, you got a cool scar, you're the bad guy."
Hmm. Yeah, this just seemed to me like a guy doing his job.
Yeah, yeah, he didn't. I did notice they were mostly blocking. You did see it a couple times, but obviously he knows about it, so they're mostly blocking
Mm.
where you see the other side of his face. But he does walk around, and I was like, okay, that there it is, because I could. It took me a little bit to tell, but but then the last time I watched, I was like looking for it because I'd already read about it. So
Gotcha. So they were deliberately trying to cover it up then.
no, I
Because
think he was.
I did not know to look for
I
it.
don't think they put makeup on it. I think he was just kind of like talking like this, and they turn, then they do a new shot or something like that. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. Well, and speaking of makeup, that the old age makeup, not terrible. Certainly not by the day's standards.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, my daughter popped in. It was a short drink from a certain fountain, and I was like, ah, ha, 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 look at that makeup because it was like so fake looking. So this was a step above that. Obviously, they just used a lot of dark lines, I guess, to really
Yeah,
accentuate.
they did.
He Here's the thing: I don't think it looked quite realistic, but in the style of this episode, it looked right.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Like it fits.
Yeah, because everything is all angles in this episode and shadows, and his face is basically shadows and
Yeah.
angles, which isn't really what people in their 70s look like, but it
No,
looked
but
kind of
they're
cool.
staying on theme. How
Yeah.
about that?
I mean, he looked like a touch zombie. Also, he's been in space, so who knows how you would age in a metal can. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, the radiation exposure, were there any precautions against that? Or I don't know.
yeah. This guy's almost Major Tom, except he does come back, so good for him.
Yeah, basically, huh?
Let's put this on the tripometer. 0 is not trippy at all, and 5 is extremely trippy. Where would you like to place this one?
Hmm. Torn between doing 3.5 and a 4 because the switcheroo did get me. It's trippy in that I was not expecting a sad ending the way that this happened, so that tripped me out. But is it like trippy, oh my God, what is happening kind of trippy? No, not in the least. So how about I go with 3.5?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give it that 4. To a certain extent, agreeing with 3.5, but I'm willing to give this the 1964 perspective a little bit because people watching this in 1964, they'd seen the one episode out in the desert with suspended animation for the Twilight Zone. This is probably the only the second time they're even coming across the concept of suspended animation. They don't do
Good
time
point.
dilation in this one, but they do acknowledge, the length of space flights, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, really, he shouldn't be that old because he was going past the speed of light, right? But whatever.
Yeah, the physics don't apply.
Yeah, they work that out by, Serling works that out by ape time. He kind of starts getting that more. But that's the whole point. These are very new concepts to the viewers of 1964 and really trippy ones that, I mean, we still trip people out with that sort of thing. But this is the basic bare bones version of it, but still I think it's an effective version of it. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna let it keep that for and that actually I think the highest I've rated a season 5 Twilight episode on the to Tripometer. I don't think anything's hit 4 yet. So finally a properly trippy one, yeah.
Nice. All right. And given that logic, okay, yeah, maybe it does deserve a little bit higher.
But I mean, of course, that's a completely arbitrary. It's not a quality scale. It's just a trippy scale. So,
Sure, sure. But if you're watching this in 1964, you might be tripped out of your mind.
yeah, I'm looking at this wiki page on suspended animation and fiction, and it's put listing 2001: Space Odyssey, 1968, 2010,
Mm-hmm.
1984, and I'm just saying numbers. Of course, Planet of the Apes is 68. Alien has it's 79. Pitch Black, I haven't seen that actually, but that's 2000. Avatar has it. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's like 64. That's wildly early for this
That's
sort of thing.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Good to
Uh,
know. Good job, Twilight
Star Trek
Zone.
Space Seed, I guess it does in 67, but yeah,
Yeah.
3 years ahead of the curve for pretty much anything is that's deserving of getting your trip points and being a very good episode of Twilight Zone. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah, it was solid. It was engaging. It was enjoyable to watch. It was fun, even though it was sad at the end.
I guess the weird minimalist, stylish stuff kind of makes me think of the Obsolete Man, where it just really doubled down on those sets. It contrasted that with a second set, though, which was a very like kind of homey looking library room. So this one was just all austere angles and shadows. So angles and
Yeah.
shadows. There's a good name for this episode. No,
There you
Longmire is
go.
fine. You don't have to change it. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to throw out on this one?
Maybe just that the sunglasses that Rod Serling was wearing toward the end looked really good on him, and I like a pair of those.
And I didn't notice those until I looked at your notes and was watching this just before this recording. So I guess that's the sometimes maybe you should look at the other person's notes, which yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah. Other than that, I think we covered it, but this was a fun episode. Said at the top, I love concepts of what the 1950s and 60s science fiction writers envisioned the future to be. So this version of 1987 was terribly interesting, and then some.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess tell the folks what you're up to. I believe you're just wrapping up season 2 of Prodigy on your podcast, or you
We
just
are,
wrapped it
yeah.
up past tense, I suppose.
Yeah, we just released the season two look back on the season as a whole, but we'll have a couple of other supplemental episodes coming up down the pipe as we close out the year. So stay tuned for those. And then otherwise, you can find me on Mission Log Live as well, occasionally hosting. So that's in fact what I'm doing later tonight.
I will make my admission though for I'm enjoying Star Trek Prodigy, meaning I haven't quite finished season 2 because I think Trek has to come out weekly, and I realized I'm watching Prodigy exactly how I watched season 1. It took me 10 weeks to watch the first 10 episodes. Then I took like a month break, and now I'm
Yeah.
back to watch it. So I got like about four
Okay.
more to go. But
Hey,
I
you know what? That's like a very old school TV style schedule, right? Where you get some new episodes, then they would take a break, you get some reruns for a while, then you come back. You're just doing
I'm
that
watching
and take your
exactly how
time
I
with it.
yeah yeah. So no, very good show. It's just that's the weird thing because it all came out at once, so you could binge it, and I'm like, that's not no, that's not what happened.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, it's really good either way, but you do get to just absorb so much more of it if you do take it week by week.
I think it helps. You don't mix up episodes so much, which is because Prodigy's good at having a little distinction and not just being like, having that episodic serialized balance, So
Yeah. 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 There's definitely that ongoing story going on, but you can take it in installments. And you do get excited to see what happens next at the same time.
Because they keep that like it's like two episode. No, it's two episoder, then a one off, then a two episoder, then a two
There's a
episoder, then a
lot of
one off. Then it's
two-parters.
yeah. But
Yeah.
that makes you able to kind of segment and know where you are. And if I do want to go back and watch one, it makes it easier. So that's nice.
Good point. Yeah.
As for this, of course, it's Time Enough Podcast. Toss us some reviews and ratings on the podcatchers. We love to see those. I do a bunch of other podcasting. There's Films and Filth, where we talk about what are supposed to be really good and really bad movies according to IMDb. And Podcast 1999, we are now talking about the 70s Planet of the Apes stuff. They got to be wearing a monkey suit for us to want to cover it. I like the newer movies, but this is a monkey suit vibe we're going for. So,
Okay.
um, on Patreon, it's Podcastio Podcastius, and there's some video game stuff too. I feel like I have to cut myself off before I just start saying words again too many times. So, everyone get your sleep. That's the moral of this episode.
There you go. 40 years worth.
Okay. Of course, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago was 90 years without slumbering. So, yeah, even longer. That was about a
Whoa.
clock, though.
Dang. Okay.
Guy's
Okay.
convinced when the clock stops, he's going to die, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to eventually have to backfill and watch all the episodes that I've missed over time because I've only watched the episodes that I'm doing for this podcast because I just can't keep up with one for what I'm doing for podcasts and then much less anything else with my free time.
Same here. When
Like,
I get to watch, like mentioned, I've been watching season 3 of Twin Peaks, and that's because of a podcast I listen to in great part. I also dig David Lynch. I haven't seen it yet, so good
hey,
time to
but
do
it's
it.
good motivation though to do that. It's
Right,
just,
right, right.
if you do this enough, that is how you are spending your time. You're analyzing, you're taking notes. You're never just sitting back and watching something. At least I very rarely do.
Yeah. Like I get home at about 10:30 at night,
Mm.
usually. Like because I'm talking to you, it's almost 9 in the morning. That's when I podcast in the morning. So when I come like I'll eat dinner like right here because everyone's already gone to bed. But yeah, I'll watch like something 10 or 20 minutes on YouTube, finish eating,
Hmm.
and then get to doing at least 20 or 30 minutes of whatever I have to watch. Some things do get played at 1.5 or 2 speed sometimes. Fear.com, I just wasn't going to watch that at its regular speed, you know?
Yeah.
Twilight Zone's always watched at its correct speed, so that's good. But uh, I do a Disney one. We did the movie The Wild, which I could not find, and I think it's on Disney Plus. We don't have Disney Plus, but I could not find it. And I remembered
Mm.
seeing it, and we still have Blockbuster sort of stores. I remember seeing it used in there,
Oh,
so I
wow,
went and
cool.
bought it. Right, but
Nice.
the one caveat was like, oh, I actually have to watch this at normal speed now. I can't speed it up. I gotta watch it properly, so I did.
Yeah, I tend to speed through the podcast whenever I can because otherwise, like, I have a hard enough time just trying to keep up with what I listen to. And there's so much more that I would like to listen to and just flat out know I don't have enough time in my day to do that and like make podcasts and
Mm.
do the other stuff that I do.
Weirdly, I don't speed up my podcasts, but I
Hmm.
never listen to podcasts at home. I only listen to podcasts when I'm walking around. But I also walk
Oh,
like
yeah.
10 miles a day, so
So you're listening quite a bit, but okay, that's interesting.
it's
Everybody
always
does
I'm
it a little
always
different.
outside. I'm never listening inside. Yeah.
Hmm,
Not on
that's
the
kind of
train.
cool.
Not it's music. It's not podcast. So I'm walking around with my phone. I'm usually in a rice field. It's playing on the speaker. So yeah,
Hmm,
that's how I podcast. Listen, not to them,
nice.
but okay. I guess I got a dentist and you got a show to do. So
Eventually, yeah, yeah, you got to get yourself to the dentist, get one of the levels of your mouth cleaned, and
yes. I actually have no idea what they're doing.
you're just gonna show up and say, "Hi, I'm here."
Well, my Japanese still isn't that great, and I don't think they actually tell me anyway. So,
Oh, really?
so
I
you're
mean,
coming back
as long
this
as
day?
your
Yeah,
teeth are
sure, why not?
healthy, yeah,
I don't
they're
know.
on it.
Hopefully, they
All
look
right.
better
Well,
than they did a
thank
few
you. This
months
was a
ago.
lot of fun.
I will hit the stop then.